So hello and welcome. My name is Doug Finke. I'll be your host and presenter. For those folks who don't know me, I'm a 15-time PowerShell Microsoft MVP. Wrote a book about PowerShell called PowerShell for Developers. And I have a bunch of modules out there that are publicly available that are pretty popular. One of them is Import Excel. Lets you integrate PowerShell and Excel at the command line, and you can automate Excel without having Excel installed. You can read, write, update sheets, workbooks, so on. And again, don't have to have Excel installed. And my latest one is called, I guess latest, a little over a year and a half now, is for PowerShell AI integration. You can think about it as ChatGPT meets PowerShell in your console or in your scripts. And as OpenAI continues to roll forward and add new features, I make sure that my modules are up to date. And what we're going to see today is the core module, PSAI, PowerShell AI. That'll keep growing as I can keep up with what the OpenAI is doing. And I'm looking to bring in other providers as well, like Gemini, as well as Claude and more, Llama, Ollama. And then we're going to see some stuff that you can build on top of that PSAI to build agents and assistants and whatnot. We'll talk about what that is in a minute. So just a little bit of housekeeping. So next week, on August 22nd, I guess that's Thursday, I have a segment that I'd call 2.5 Geeks, and Mike Sewell is going to be on. He's been on before. He's a national director at Sentinel Technologies, and he's done some cool stuff with some of the other modules I have, things like integrating interactive notebooks that I built a PowerShell module for. He used that as well as he's gone down the route of working with interactive notebooks and the ways that he builds his team out, the way he automates things for his team and for clients. So he'll be on, and we're going to talk about AI, and we're going to chat with AI. I think it's going to be a good time, hear about what he's doing, how he got involved with AI, what he's new things he sees on the horizon from his customers. And I'll be there to poke, prod, and have fun. And just as a note, next Friday, I'm going to do another live stream. And this live stream I'm calling Coding Rock Solid AI Agents, PowerShell Precision. Now, this one's a little bit different. It's fee-based. I'm asking $8. So if you want to join, that'd be great. And there's good news and bad news today for the presentation. The good news is you're going to see some amazing demos, in my opinion. The bad news is the first half I've made public. The second half was going to be based on the PSAI agent that I wrote, and I haven't pushed that into the public yet, making that part of my premium content. So you'll get we'll see what that looks like today in building an assistant. And if you want to get your hands on that code as well as the core library that uses that, that's next week. And next week, I'm going to do a deep dive on how this works, how function calling works, so on and so forth. So hopefully you'll stay around to see the demos, and hopefully I'll be able to see you next week, which would be great. And I just want to shout out to everybody who's supported my work. There's some folks on today that also have actually contributed, folks that I DM with time to time. And we have, I think for me, it's great conversations about AI, where it's going, what's new, who's doing what in the space. There's a lot going on. To call it a fire hose is an understatement. No one person has their head around this, not even the top AI people. So it's good stuff. I think this is a great community project, in my opinion. And happy to have all aboard, and definitely check out my repos. I have the discussions turned on. If you want to talk about what you're doing, what you're not doing, issues that you're having, here to help. And this AI stuff is not going away, in my opinion, and it's a good thing to start getting your head around. So if you want to follow along today, you can do an install module PSAI. Right. So you do that. You have to grab yourself a key up on the OpenAI platform. If you install the module and you type in AI space quote, hello world quote, if you haven't set up your key, it'll tell you need to, and it'll give you a link to where to do that. The good news is put in like $5. You'll never go over it because they don't auto charge your card. So whatever maximum you put in, and if you put in, I don't know what the minimum is for the first time around, but if you put a $5 bill in, once you run out, you don't have to worry about it. You have to manually add more money to continue to use. It's not going to have runaway costs. And it's the best $5 I think you'll ever spend. And it'll probably take you a few months to spend that amount. AI has gotten so cheap with the new models that have come out from OpenAI, the 4.0 to 4.0 mini, and then there's an intermediate one they call 4.0 with a date at the moment. Unbelievable speed, great accuracy, and the costs are like fractions of pennies. It's getting so cheap. Intelligence is getting so cheap, you really can't even meter it. So you can join me on that. And also dropped a couple of new pieces into the PSAI base. This is you can install and use today. Some folks might have seen this last year. Let's do that. So here it is. It's called Enable-ShortcutKey. I had that originally, but I've updated it within the last number of months. What allows you to do is, let's change over here. So you can do things like, what is my IP? Right now, I'm going to start that with a £, Control-Shift-G. And what that did was it took my comment, went off to ChatGPT and said, just gave it the prompt, what is my IP? And that's the response that it came back with. Okay. And I then insert it back into your PS read line. You can press enter after reviewing the code and you're off to the races. Now, what's interesting about that is before it was a one-shot deal, but in a sense that you type in your prompt, it went to the model, got a response, and then you could do what you want with it. So I've updated it and gave it some memory, which means I can do something like let's try this. What are all the PS1 files? Let's see what this does. Okay, and now you can see it came back that quickly from the model. This is using 4.0 mini, by the way. That's the default that I'd use in the PSAI. So this is using the cheapest, not as accurate, very fast model. And the inaccuracy is only when you get into really, really complicated questions and chain of thought and whatnot. So you can see how fast that came back, gave me the PowerShell that I wanted. Okay, and we'll do that. We'll hit a break, clear the screen. Now the memory I'm talking about is now, instead of saying what files am I doing for PS1s, show me the list. Let's see if I can just type in PPTX. See what we get. So notice it knows that I'm talking about directory listings. That's because it has memory of what my conversation is using the Enable-ShortcutKey. And this gets really interesting when you want to start doing very complex conversations, right? So you can sit here, you can start your, hey, I want to know how many processes are running on my machine. Show all processes with lots of handles. See what we get, right? So that's the standard. That's awesome. Came back, figured that out. And, right. Oops. Let's see if we can press enter. Now, because I asked that, I can say, I didn't want to do that. Let's do a from Microsoft. So these are pretty super ambiguous prompts, but because of the memory, it knows I was just talking in the last one that I would want to get processes. So it says, oh, okay, you want to find all the Microsoft processes, but notice it didn't keep the handles, which is fine. So I just wanted to give a sense of the flavor of that. So that's now part of PSAI. So if you download that, you can do an Enable-ShortcutKey. And you can start playing around with that, take a look at the code, see what it's about. I don't think it's that complicated. And then you can take it apart, put your own together. There is a prompt in there, and you can then tune the prompt to what you'd want to see. So let's take a look at a couple more things. Let's see if I can go back. Excellent. Let's go to data. There's another piece I just added, which I think not only is it really I think it's cute, but I think it's super powerful, and I like it. So chatting with your data, chatting with your files, chatting with other stuff on your system. So here I have three different files. I have two sales files. One is sales CSV, and the other one's an Excel file. It's the same thing, but in Excel format. And then I have a greeting, right? So that has a PS1 file that has a greet function in it. Okay, so let's see what we can do with that. Let's cat the sales again, CSV. Oops, nice. Let's retype that. Let's cat the sales. But now what I have is I can say chat. And so I've added that in a couple of different ways, right? So now I've used the extended type system. So you can do a dot if you're comfortable with it, or you can pipe it and do a bunch of other, in the standard way that my PowerShell works. And I can say, let's do it this way one more time so we can see the data. Now, let's say I had some questions about this. So I can do something like chat, top 3. So it's going to take that data and, depending on your risk profile, it's actually taking my sales data. It gave that up to OpenAI, to the model. And then I said top 3. And then OpenAI, the model, came back and said, okay, you know what? I think I'm going to take a look at price and extract the units and price and then respond to the information. Breaks down a bunch of stuff about the states, and then it did a sort on its own, and it gives me the answer at the bottom. So this is beginning to show you where I'm heading. I'm going to talk about assistants and agents, right? So, oops, did I just type something somewhere? Yes, I did. All right. So what if we have an Excel file here? So of course, I'm going to demo the import Excel. Let's try sales. And so it's the same data, but it's in an Excel format, right? And we can do the same thing. But now what I want to do is I can either say chat, give me the top 3, or I can say something like group by, and I'm going to spell group wrong because I always do that accidentally, group by region. And I'm going to spell that wrong, some units, because AI is very forgiving, right? Let's see what it does. Okay, so how cool is that, right? So it comes back with an explanation to group the data by region. It figured out from my misspellings what I wanted, and it starts to figure out west and north and east and south. Super cool, right? So if you want to start chatting with your data in any format, this is I am chatting with my data. I've done this in different ways and with different environments, but this is becoming a go-to that I'm very much enjoying. I can even come back here and say, let's do it again. And I can say something like in a table, see what we get. Anything interesting. So now I'm getting a markdown table, right? We're going to do it one more time. And now I have something called Glow installed on my machine. And what that'll do, we'll take the markdown and it'll render it for me, right? So now I can do some really cool stuff at the command line and not only get calculations, which are correct, and I can start getting visualizations. Thank you, Dale. Yeah, this is pretty, I'm going to call it slick-a-doodle-do. Slick-a-doodle-do. So that's stuff like that. Now I'm going to kick this up 2 more notches, and I promise to get into the full agents. But this is the progression in thinking about what can you do with this AI stuff. And so let's do cat. Let's say take a look at the PS1 file, right? Now that looks cool. And I'm going to chat. Now this data, again, this script is going to go up to the model. So if you're not comfortable with it going to OpenAI, it's not for you. But if you're okay with that, fine. If you're using Azure OpenAI services, this module works with that. Just a couple of settings to point to the proper endpoints, and this will work exactly the same way with the Azure OpenAI. So I'm going to say chat, code review. Let's see what happens. And the winner is, and I think yesterday OpenAI was having some issues, but all right, we're looking okay. So I just asked it to do a code review. So the provided code snippet defines a simple PowerShell function. That is correct. Very simple. Let's review it step by step, right? So now if I'm new to PowerShell, or let's say I'm even new to the code base, I can cat the file. I can cat a bunch of files. I can do a dir star ps1, and this will work, and it'll send up all the data. And then you can say, here's my prompt, which is passed into the chat method. Gives me the code review about the function, tells me about parameters, string interpolation. How cool is that? If somebody asked me to review this on my own, I would never talk about string interpolation. I've been doing this so many years, I'd have been like, oh yeah, it'll print the name. Talks about formatting and readability, and then it even gives us a suggested revision. So it does, it types the string, and it even throws an error if it doesn't. How cool is that? I didn't even ask it to do that. Did it on its own. This is better than interns. Now, let's do this once again. And let's say, I'll say add comment-based help. Now, all this that you're seeing at the moment, if you download the PSAI module, you can do everything I'm doing here. I will make the video available on my YouTube channel. I will post that link in a second. And you can rewatch this and play around and see what you can do. So here you see, I've got my comment-based help that it did, and it even gives me an explanation, and it's still included a function. I can get really fancy here, and I can, part of my chat, so this is part of prompt engineering, I can do things like no fence blocks, right? So you saw there was triple backticks maybe in there, no fence block. And I can say no explanation. And you can do this in any order, right? This is what's coming off the top of my head. Fence blocks, no explanation, no usage. All right. Run it again. Oh, that really worked well. Thanks for a great demo. Okay. So it's not as good at the comment-based help, and I'm just going to throw in here, go step by step. Now that doesn't usually happen. And I'm going to blame it on the server side at the moment, but typically I'll get the same comment-based help and it won't put the triple ticks and whatnot, but we'll leave it at that for now. So what we've seen is I can look at CSV data, Excel data. I can send that up to the model. I can chat with it, ask it for summarizations. I can ask it for top 3. And you can start to play with your imagination, thinking like, how would a data scientist deal with it? You can even do something like cat, sales.csv, and then say, chat, how would a data scientist look at this? Give me some insights. And it will come back with some really cool stuff. Now, the last thing I wanted to show you with what you can do, which I just put up a video yesterday on my YouTube channel. Let's say I copy this data. All right, so I'm going to copy to the clipboard. And so if I do a get clipboard, right, there's all my data. So what's really cool and so that's just regular text. And since we're in PowerShell, right, I'm going to say get the clipboard, and I'm going to say chat, give insights. So now I took that same data, right, that we saw before in the sales, but now I'm grabbing it from the clipboard. And nothing special on my end. I'm just leveraging the power of PowerShell. But because I've built an AI module that plugs into PowerShell, things begin to light up. So give insights, talking about regional distribution, highest low prices, right? So that's standard data science. Give me the high low of the different units and price. That's what I would do as a data scientist. Then I would start doing comparisons, strategic opportunities, and of course, it's all in Markdown because that's pretty much the default. And if I did it as through Glow, take another couple of seconds. Hopefully, it'll give me the right, better, good answers. There is a whole bunch of different things you can see, a little bit better formatted. And instead of piping it to Glow, I could have saved it to a file. Right, so imagine, that's off the clipboard, but imagine if I'm getting a bunch of CSV files, XLSS, X files, text files, unstructured, or I'm going against a bunch of stuff in a database. I can now extract that data with PowerShell, with the tools I'm comfortable with, and then I can just chat it, and I can have AI do a bunch of different things on it. So it's not just for code analysis. It's not just for adding comments and whatnot. So you can, again, you can get that today. That's all available in install module PSAI. And hey, Larry, thank you. Yeah, it's fun stuff. This is definitely cool stuff. So it's 1 o'clock, and I know it's everybody's either into their weekend or getting ready for their weekend. I know I am. And let's take it. Let's go in. Let's start talking about agents. So what is an agent? What is an assistant? So I didn't really take a look at what the best definition is, but you can think about agents as autonomous pieces that you can allow, you can enable with AI. So a lot of people just are saying like, oh, well, agents and assistants are just a bunch of fluff terms. It's really, I'm going to turn my camera on. Sorry about that. So a lot of people can sit there and say, well, it's just basically a loop. And it is a loop, but there's also some really cool pieces that OpenAI is adding to it. Like you can do what they call function calling, which allow you to take a signature of a function, pass that up into the model, and then the model will use that as part of its prompt and sit there and figure out, okay, I'm getting prompted with all these questions. Let me see if there's an appropriate function to call, and I'm going to populate that function with a bunch of data. So it doesn't actually call the function for you. That's a myth, right? It'll pass it back to you in the program, in this case in PowerShell, and say, hey, this is the function you should call with these parameters. So now if you have a function that does that, you can actually inspect those parameters to make sure there's nothing. You can sanitize it. You can make sure there's nothing dangerous and whatnot. So again, it doesn't call it. You do the calling. And what I've done is I've looked at it. I've looked at things like LangChain, AutoGen from Microsoft. I've looked at semantic kernel, and I've looked at it and go, oh, I think I see what they're doing. And I'm trying to pick the best of all the tools, because a lot of these tools started early, and they drove the direction of what OpenAI is doing in Gemini and whatnot, and turned down the path of agents, initially started by Hugging Face. And I was like, oh, let me see if I can build that around the AI stuff that OpenAI is doing and what they're providing, and then make life easier. So Dale says, that's what I'm going to try with RB Tools data. Awesome. That's, hopefully you and I will get to chat more about that. So let's take a look at some simple stuff. Just let's start out simple. So here we're going to take a look at a new function called new agent, and something called get agent response. Again, this is part of the PSAI agent, which I haven't made public. It's part of my premium content, so we'll take a look at it here. But if you join next week, I give this join, pay the fee, $8, and even if you can't make the live stream, I will email you the code, and I will email you the recording. So you don't have to be there to get it, but it is part of my premium content. So new agent, we're just going to set up a simple one, and we're going to pipe that into get agent response. So it's a little bit along the lines of how the chat works, but there's some extra cool pieces. So if I just do this, it looks like the chat, right? So I'm using an agent, get response, it just comes back, and you're good to go. So kicking that up a notch, let's bring back Visual Studio Code. So here we go, right? So now I'm going to define a function called get username. It returns Doug, right? Now, what's really cool about this is going to be using the function tools that OpenAI provides. Anthropic provides similar stuff. Gemini and Meta are doing a little bit different, if at all. We'll see I'm sure they're going to try and match this stuff step by step, or make improvements and make innovations. So I'm going to define a function called get username. We're not going to do anything with that. I'm going to create a variable, going to set new agent to it, and then I'm going to pipe that agent again, and I'm going to say hello to the user. So if you can see down here, it says, hello, how can I assist you today? Well, that's not really what I wanted. That's not super helpful. It's not helpful at all. But how would it know about Doug? It wouldn't. So I have a function I built, part of the PSAI agent, called register tool. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, I'm going to change directory here so it's easier to see. So if I do a register tool, it comes back with a hash table. I also have a function in there, not properly named for PowerShell, but that's okay. I'm going to pipe that to dump JSON. So I'm going to take that hash table, dump it to JSON, and you can see it's got function. There's my username, get user. There are no parameters, so everything is empty. And this register tool works with very complex function signatures. You can have a bunch of parameters. You can have validate sets. You can have enums. Everything, all the functions can be, all the parameters can be typed, and that'll get dropped into this particular structure. This is a structure that OpenAI came up with, and it's a standard, so to speak. People are saying this is what the industry is saying. This makes a lot of sense. Each vendor is going to implement their own approach. Let's see what it can do. So now that I've registered it on the agent, we're going to do a couple things. There's a tools parameter. So I'm going to register the tool, which converts it to this JSON format, right? And or to the hash table, and pass that into the tools, which then gets part of how I wrap that up to how OpenAI wants it in their REST API. But I also have something called ShowToolCalls, and we'll see what that does. So this is a cute, interesting hybrid approach, right? So we're using PowerShell, we're using the model in certain parts, and that's where agent technology gets really interesting. So I'm going to do the exact same thing, but this time I'm giving it a tool, and we should see a couple things. We should see what the tool gets called, if it gets called. There you go. And now I get a different response from the model, right? So by enabling ShowToolCalls, let's put that at the end. Right. So if I wanted to do debugging, this is a step in a debugging process, or I can run it again without the ShowToolCalls, and I'll just get a response. Right. And so this is something that's useful again for debugging, and it's just a switch, turn it on and off. But now what we've done is I've now given OpenAI, I've given the model a definition of the function, so it knows when and how to call it, or it'll make a decision to do that. If we want to be able to say that a model can do that. I definitely anthropomorphize these models maybe a little too much. So it's making a decision like, oh, I have a tool, let me call it, respond to it. Now under the covers, new agent and get agent response, use all the function and functionality of the PSAI, which is the core OpenAI pieces. Okay. So there's nothing, this is just wrapping it up to another level. And this wrapping it up to another level, again, is based on what I've been looking at in terms of what OpenAI is doing, how they're suggesting about building assistants and agents, and down the line of LangChain, Baby GPT, AutoGPT, AutoGen, semantic kernel, so on and so forth. And this gives you some really interesting capabilities. Let's see some more. If you got questions, definitely drop them in the chat. This stuff is new. It takes a bit to, start to grok. I know it's taken me a while. And when I started building out these models or building out these modules in PowerShell, I didn't build everything out at once, and I just started putting the critical happy path together to make things happen. And all of a sudden I started to see emerging behavior, and I was like, how in the heck did that happen? But let's take a look at what some cool pieces are. Now, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to build the agent, right? Simple stuff. And my prompt is 10 plus 3 minus 2 is this prime. So when I run this, it sends up that prompt, and the model comes back. How reliable are results? Larry asks. Working with ChatGPT, it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. I find it to be extremely reliable. Because you're constraining the model to use particular functions, it's calling your functions. Now you need to be, I've always practiced, I've been in the industry for 100 years. When I design my functions and modules, I do defensive programming. So I do a lot of guards in my code as if somebody else is using it, which they typically are, right? I put guards and messages and whatnot in the process so that I can guard against bad data, so on and so forth. So yeah, would I just take this thing with new agent and agent response and go, oh, open it up and put it in production? Absolutely not. You need to take this stuff, work with it, play with it, build tests. It's like any other system. If you went up to Google or Stack Overflow in the past, I hope you didn't just take the code, drop it into your solution, and push it to production and let it run. No, you look at the code, see, does it make sense? Is there anything wacko in it? It's the same thing here. AI is not a magic bullet. It's you have an intern that you can talk to that can make decisions and help you work and do things that are better. As you get better at prompting, these are really simple prompts I'm doing, but as you get to understand how these things work, you'll get an intuition of what makes sense, how to do better prompts, how to make longer prompts to keep the guardrails on, and it's getting better and better and better every couple of weeks. So Dale says, need a dev environment. Can you say a bit more about that? So what happened here, what I'm showing here is that you can take this prompt, right? And what the model did was it figured out all on its own. It said, okay, I'm going to add these two numbers, I'm going to subtract, and then it's going to figure out whether it is prime. So that's all on the model that it did. So in terms of accuracy, maybe that's a simple example, but that's what it's capable of doing. So we're going to kick that up a notch. And what I'm going to do is I want to help it along, so to speak. And so what I'm going to do first is create what do we got? You need to use a dev environment first. I agree with what you said. Oh, gotcha. Absolutely. Do not take this stuff and drop it into production. That's on you. This is not a magic bullet. It's not going to read your mind. We're not on the Starship Enterprise where we're talking to the holodeck and we say, hey, I want to do this thing, and everything magically works. This is a tool that you put in your toolbox and you have to learn how to use it. And yeah, you could go off the rails. I've done some really wacky stuff with this, like where I let it work on my system to stop processes and rename files. And I've had a tremendous amount of success and haven't seen any bad car wrecks. It didn't format my drives, so on and so forth. So in this example, I'm going to add a function called Invoke-Add, right? It takes two parameters, right? Notice I'm saying they're float. And I'm just going to write something out so we can see it on the screen about adding. And I'm doing some little extra work here, not necessary, but just to show you, did that holodoc ever really work? Of course it worked. Dude, I saw it on TV. So I'm actually going to wrap the answer in, and I'm going to make a hash table, tell it what operation I was doing and the result. And I'm going to compress that, put that in JSON, and I'm going to return that. So let's just run up the Invoke-Add for a quick second. So we run that up, and then what I'm going to do is show you the register tool, and we'll run that. And so I'm going to say register tool, and let's do it on the Invoke-Add, and we'll dump that to JSON so we can just. Okay, so this is what I wrote the register tool, and what's interesting when I wrote it because I'm really lazy. And in my opinion, the best developer is a lazy one. Because I didn't want to say, oh, I don't want to call that I'd called it float. It really should be a string. And then I'd have to go, at that point when this first came out, you'd have to do all this by hand. And I was like, this is tedious, not going to do it. I'm going to spend umpteen hours writing a tool that can actually parse the function and the parameters and then build a JSON for me. But now more and more tools are coming out, like Pydantic and Zod for the Unix and the Python space, to do exactly this. I don't think I was first, but that was like just something I had to do because I'm lazy. So now you can take a look at Invoke-Add. Here's the name, right? We don't have to worry about descriptions at this point. Pete's on the line. He's been playing around with descriptions. These are optional. These are great because if you do supply a description, for these things, it helps steer the model. It becomes part of your prompt. We're not going to talk about that. That's next week's deep dive. But you can see here's the property A and property B, and it properly sets it up. Okay, it's a float, but the way the JSON schemas work, it's a number. So it translates that, and at the end it says, okay, we're going to put those in that they're required. So that helps the model figure everything out. So now I'm going to just start with, okay, we're going to do a 10 plus 3. I register my tools. I set the tools here. We're going to do a show call so we can see what the agent's doing, and let's go and see what happens. Awesome. So it added them up correctly, but notice it called the Invoke-Add, right? And it populated the A and B correctly, so we could so that the Invoke-Add would work correctly. It came back with a result, and that's what we see. Kicking it up the next notch to 3. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to create, I have Invoke-Add, and I want to add another function called Invoke-Subtract. Hard to believe. So let's see if we can get, so now the model's not doing the mathematical operations. It's figuring out that it needs to do those and says, oh, let me send that back to the agent that called, that called it. So let's run that up, see how fast it is, does its registration, passed it up. That's how quick it is, right? Next week, Friday, we'll go on a deep dive of how Get-Agent works and how the function calls work, how you grab the tool IDs, how you extract the functions, and then do the actual calling to make this happen, and then how to communicate back to the model so we can get this kind of a flow. Any questions other than the holodeck? Yeah, so let's keep kicking it up till we get to the last piece. So this one's kind of cool, right? I'm going to add Invoke-IsPrime. This is how you calculate the prime. It takes pretty much the same type of an approach as the add and subtract. And now in line 45, I can ask the model, like the original question, 10 plus 3 minus 2, is this prime? And it's not going to do the calculations. It's going to defer that to the function calling. So I'm going to register the 3 tools, right? And we're doing the same thing. So you just, as I'm building this, and as you can imagine, all you're doing is adding your functions, right? What's really cool is, let's say you have a bunch of existing functions that that you have that are well tested. Well, now you can add natural language processing to it. All you have to do is register it and create an agent, pass in the tools, and see what you get. Now, as Dale mentioned, yep, I do it in a dev environment. I wouldn't do it in production. So we've added a third. Let's see if it can now answer the 10 plus 3 minus 2 is its prime by calling all the functions appropriately. Now, how the heck is it doing that? Is it deciding that? Looks like it. It figured out what it needed to call. It took the results from a previous call and then said, oh, I figured out that was 13 minus 2. I'm going to take that, and now I know how to pass it into Invoke-IsPrime. And again, if you take off the show tools, you just get the flow of somebody asking a question. These are the messages from the functions, and you get the answer at the end. All right. So any thoughts? Don't make me call on you. So let's keep going. Let's see what we got here. Oh, yeah. So now instead of, this is the cool part too, but I'm biased. So we're going to do the same exact thing we just did, but instead of calling get agent response, right? Sometimes, that's like here's my prompt, go get me the answer, right? Well, I wanted to be a little more interactive. So let's take the same approach, but instead of calling get agent response, we're going to call invoke interactive CLI. Again, this is in the PSAI agent. Join next week or sign up and you will get this code that I'm showing here. You will also get the module that makes that happen. Again, the install module PSAI is the core module that makes all this possible. That's available to download at the moment. So let's run this up. Now what I'll get is a little emoji. So I know I'm in the prompt. And I can do something like had 3 apples, bought 2. So notice I'm typing out the word 3 and I'm using the numeric 2. Let's see what do you think what it does. Oh, I got 5 apples and it's showing me some stuff. That's pretty cool. And that's sad because it should have called the see, my demos are good. This is what you get when you play with AI enough. It didn't look like it called Invoke-Add, but that's okay. Let's take it a step further, and then this might be a good opportunity to show how to use more steering capabilities. Okay, and I'm going to say mom doubled that, and I don't know if it's going to do the verbose. Yeah, so let's just do this for a second. Now, I don't personally if I see these kind of demos, I'm not going to go, oh, AI is crap, toss out the baby with the bathwater. And I know that yesterday there was a bunch of wacko stuff going on with the server side. So they may be updating. They typically update on a Friday, the models. I don't know if that's happening. It may not be. So there you go. So that also could have been my environment. Something could have gone wacky in the console. So I had three apples. It tells me to call my function. I call it, and then I pass that answer back, and we're good. Where's the link for next week event? Good question, Marco. Thanks for asking. It's on the meetup page, and I will drop that in here. And I definitely appreciate. Oops. And we'll get back to. There you go. Thank you for asking again. So yeah, sign up there. And so now we just did that. So we're in a conversation. So we're in an interactive CLI. So what that means is I've given the agent memory. So now I can do things like mom doubled. That. Okay. So it knows now to call add again, and it takes the 5. And if I would have said something else like 10, it would have figured out 10 plus 10. So this is what you can do in an interactive mode. This becomes more assistant-like, right? And yes, it's interactive. The other one, get agent response, is also assistant-like, but it's more autonomous. And we'll take a look at that right now. So I have the same setup. I've got all my tools set up. I've got my functions. They're all set. I register them. But now instead of saying piping agent into interactive, I'm going to say get agent, and there's my prompt. I had 3 apples, mom doubled, found 2, ate 1. Is that prime? Let's do it. F5, and there you go. That's how fast it is to talk to the model. Figured it out. We did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 round trips. I'm going to say could be off by 1. I usually am. So it knew what to call for the add, the multiply. It did a multiply this time instead of add 5, 5. Did another add, and then it subtracted 1, got 11, and then it figured out that at the end, yes, 11 is prime, and it showed the steps along the way. So now we got 10 minutes left. We are beginning to see some really interesting behaviors. Maybe we can take that a little further. Definitely can take that a little further. So let's close this out. I'm going to restart because I don't know what's wacky with my environment. Let's see. So I'm going to do this again. This time I'm going to say new agent is clean, so to speak. It's like a brand new run space. So it doesn't have any tools defined. It doesn't have any instructions. And I'm just going to say, okay, let's just talk to the model. So I can say something like capital of France, and it should be okay because that's all in its data. Awesome. But now what happens if I say, I'm going to misspell things. What are the employment numbers? Anybody's guess on what I'm going to ask and what it's going to say for 2024? Come on, tell me you can't do it. I don't have access to real-time data. So this is what most people have experienced in the last year or so. You go up to ChatGPT, and this is the answers you get. And then people go, this thing's crap. Yeah, it's kind of crap. But they didn't, it's all about trained data. So how do we begin to solve that problem? And people with the higher pay salaries than I am went to work, and they said, okay, what we're going to do is enable function calling. So we saw this before, right? So here's the tools. I'm going to register something called Invoke-WebSearch. We'll take a look at. There's also something called instructions, right? Where you can say, I'm going to say today's date is get date. So we're doing standard PowerShell, put it in a string, pass it off to the agent. Instructions are super powerful because that basically gives it a steering prompt, right? And if you set this up once and you gave it to a user or you use it yourself, you don't even know that that's being called. And yes, your mindset has to begin to change. You need to begin to have an AI first mindset, meaning, oh, I can set up instructions and I can do this with tools and so on and so forth. And how do I start developing with this? How do I start interacting with it? How do I start debugging it? So let's take a real quick look. we'll do it now. Yeah, why not? So here's web search, right? And let me see if I can, yeah, let's go over here. And am I in the right place? Yeah. So Tavily is I don't know how long it's been out. It's been out for a bit. They're a really cool REST API. It's the free version gives you, I think, 1,000 queries a month, and it's a specifically designed as an AI capable browse Google, like a Google search engine, but for AI. And so you get up there, you get a key, you get like 1,000. It goes for 1,000 queries, and then I think it resets. I haven't gotten to that yet. I've only done 74. I've been using it for several weeks, and we'll show you what this can do. So I wrote a function, right? So this is standard PowerShell, right? So there's nothing magical here, right? Create a function called WebSearch, right? Going to pass it in a query up top. Do the standard parameters of mandatory, commandlet binding. I first check to see if you have a key installed in your environment. If you don't, I tell you to use Tavily search, how to set it, and where to get it from. So here's their base URL. And then there's a bunch of parameters you can set in the body. Again, it's a hash table, nothing fancy, just setting a bunch of parameters for the query, right? So I set the key, I pass in the query, the search depth is basic, and you can turn these things on true and false. You can set the max results and a whole bunch of other things that you can read on their site if you wanted to. And then down here, standard invoke REST method. I'm going to do a post, take that base URL, pass it in, append search, so I can call it, pass in those parameters. And so if I actually run this up, and let's say I've had this in my library and my toolkit for 100 years. Now I can do something like invoke web search. Let's just say PowerShell. So this is like searching on a search engine. And this is what comes back, right? So I think everybody, hopefully most people come here are PowerShell folks and they're comfortable with this kind of thing. And again, they're a great company because they are REST-based, so it doesn't make a difference if you're coding in Python, C#, blah, 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 blah. So you can get these kind of interactions, and then you can take it to the next level, right? So if I come back here, so I'm dot sourcing that web search. I'm registering the invoke web search. So like I said before, let's say you had existing tools that you use. You have existing PS1 files, existing modules that have a whole bunch of functions in it. If you've built and tested over time, all you got to do is register. You can either dot source it, if that's what you've done in a PS1, or import module on a PSM1. And I'm going to do this, and I will do it in interactive mode. So it's the same setup we've seen all along. New agent, give it a bunch of stuff, and I want to do it interactively. So we run this up, and now I've got an agent, and if I say, what are the employment numbers for 2024? I remember before it says up, I don't have that in my training data. No problem. So it doesn't have it, so it's going to say, oh, I'm going to call the invoke web search. It figures out the query based on my prompt. Goes off and queries Tavily, gets the results. I pass that back in. Now I have all the numbers for this year. This is how ChatGPT now works, where you can ask questions. It'll search the web. This is the same technique. Now you have it in PowerShell. And I wouldn't lollygag getting this because folks in the Python space, excuse me, in the PHP space and the C# space are doing similar things as well. So this is becoming like, well, when I sit back and I say, AI is not going to take your job, somebody who knows how to use AI will. I believe this is the next set of steps. If you know Andrew Ng, maybe you don't, he founded Google Brain before it became, I think, what it is today. I think it's called DeepMind. I don't know if I get those backwards. Anyway, he went on to co-found Coursera. He's got his own company called Deep Learning AI. He gets called to the White House. He's involved with all kinds of stuff about AI. He's quite brilliant. He was known for his machine learning courses that he taught 100 years ago. And what's interesting about agents is you can take some like 3.5, ChatGPT 3.5 just got retired, I believe, or it's going to retire in a couple of months. If you did a single shot prompt, meaning, hey, what are the employment numbers, or something even mathematical, typically you'd get like a 60% chance of accurate results, right? If GPT-4 came out, those numbers jumped up to 70 to 80% accuracy, and you might have to take the results from it and then feed it back into the model to get better answers. Well, because of this agent approach that's happening, now you can give it an agent, and if it gets a wrong answer, it can actually, you'll be feeding it back to itself so it can determine if the answer is correct. You can ask it to say, hey, double check your work, all autonomously. It will then requery or redo things that it thinks it needs to do to get you the right result. So now you can take the same ChatGPT 3.5, apply an agent or process to it, and you go from a 60% to an 85% accuracy. So you can outdo the later models. So again, Hugging Face came up with the concepts of these agents, and all the big tech firms started implementing and experimenting with it, like in early 23. And this is some of the results that we're getting. And again, I've looked at a bunch of the different lang chains, auto GPTs, auto gens, semantic kernels, and I'm like, oh, I think I see what they're doing. And I'm picking at those parts and I'm building that straight into PowerShell. And this is the kind of stuff that can start happening. Now, let's go to here. This is, I think, I like this one. This is a lot of fun. So now we're going to do the same thing, right? We're going to just extend this, and we're not even going to extend it programmatically in the traditional sense of programming. We're going to extend it programmatically in terms of prompt engineering. So take a look. So we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to pull in the WebSearch. Let's do a restart because I don't know what's going on with my environment. And I'm not going to blame ChatGPT for that, because I do respect our overlords that are coming. So we're going to .source the web search, right? I'm going to set up an array, and I'm going to start adding to the array. I'm going to say today's date, right? Going to add that to the array. And then I'm going to add a bunch of instructions. Now, I could have done this all in one here string, but I'm just going to do this for a demonstration. So I'm going to give it a persona, say, hey, you're a senior New York Times editor. You're going to write a cover story, and you're going to write a story that's worthy to report, and I'm going to tell you it's due tomorrow. So I'm telling the model. You will be provided with a topic and search results from junior researchers. Carefully read the results, generate a final, blah, 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 make it well structured. And then here comes the really cool part. We're going to add more to the instructions. I'm going to tell it the format that I want. Okay. I'm going to say, a little XML for you. Choose your poison. You want to do it in JSON. I want to say it as YAML. So here's the report format. I want a title. I want you to tell me the overview and importance. And I want 3 sections with 3 details. I want a conclusion, and then give me references and links. Awesome. Come down here, right? I'm going to write out a message that we're doing the prompt. And line 58 is what you saw before. Registering the Invoke web search. Want to see the tool calls it makes. And I'm just going to take that array and put it together. So I'm doing this all in memory. This prompt could sit in a file. This prompt can sit in on a REST endpoint. This prompt can sit in a database, wherever you're comfortable, right? And at the end, I'm not going to interact with it. I just want it to autonomously go forth and use the instructions and the tools to figure out an answer. So at the end, I'm going to just pipe it all to Glow because I hope it comes out in Markdown. And we're going to start with what is PowerShell. Okay, so let's run this up. And there we go. That's how quick it is. And let's see. So it's querying Tavily, gives the results back to the model. The model goes off and cooks. And hopefully we get a good response. And check that out. So this is the little bit of a report that I just got about what is PowerShell. Developed by Microsoft, increasingly digital in today's digital workplace. Efficiency and automation has become indispensable. Key features of PowerShell, automation and configuration management, and embracing open source, contributions. Summary, PowerShell stands out as a leading tool. And then at the bottom, there's a bunch of different links I can use. Now, I piped it into Glow. Again, I could pipe this into a file, right? Put a timestamp on it. Now, what does that mean? Let's clear the screen. Now we can go back to where we were. And let's run 04 up again. And I'm going to say compare. Hopefully you can see this. And we'll wrap up on this one. Compare Azure Arm, Bicep, and Ansible. Now that's a little bit ambiguous, but let's see what it does. Oops. What did I do wrong? Okay, let's do the 04 again. So why isn't it getting passed into the prompts? Yeah, that's a bummer. Oh, I see. What am I doing? Oh, I'm doing the 041. Let's do 3. Get the right file. Hey, so I thought I tried these out before spending your time. Let's try one more. This time I'm going to go in here. Too many restart sessions today. That's should not have known what it did, but it did it anyway. So they're saying compare Bicep and Ansible. Let's see what it does. And notice, so it does that. I don't know if it's going to ask, go to Tavily again, or just going to go to it one time. So the PhD researcher went off and talks about, let's see. So it gives an overview about IAC tools, the importance. It talks about Bicep, Ansible, and Terraform in the overviews. It talks about key features, ideal use cases for each one, Bicep, Ansible, and Terraform. There's your conclusion. There's your references. Now, back to the question, is this accurate? I wouldn't take this and send it off to management without reading a bunch of pieces to it. But the more you work with the tools, right, you might, this is a really simple minimalist prompt, right? If you really start to flesh that out, you'd be amazed at what you get. And the cool thing is it's an autonomous agent. So if I've done this, not this particular kind of a prompt, but I've done a much more complex prompt, and I will see that the agent will query Tavily multiple times with different queries. So it could actually form the result. And as you can see, I just gave it a markdown process here. This is something else that's good to learn about models. Giving structured output, so to speak, in this way enables the model to come up with some really cool pieces. So if you don't want to see a conclusion, you don't want to see 3 sections, you want to see more of X, Y, Z, tell the model. It's your personal agent. It is your personal assistant. Now, what's really slick is I've actually done this and then set this off into parallel processes, right, using multiple run spaces. So now I can have 12 queries run at the same time and then report back into the same directory. And I give it, instead of piping it to Glow, I pipe it to a markdown file. So I can have it do a bunch of research on a bunch of different topics, and then I can read through those topics in the summaries, saving me tons and tons of time. And I always take the approach with pretty much any news in the last 5 to 10 years that it's all bullshit and I need to do research. I need to, I'm going to take this as a piece of information, but I need to do additional work. I'm not just going to take it lock, stock, and barrel, whether it's a human, whether it's this. It's not that I don't trust people in this. I don't trust anybody or anything. So that's my personal way, but this gets me towards an AI first mindset. So I'm 6 minutes over. So I hope to see you folks next week. Again, the agent stuff is not public. Everything else you saw before with the chats, with the clipboard stuff, with the Enable-ShortcutKey, that's in the PSAI module today. You're welcome, Dale. Hope it was useful. So if you want to get this code and what I just demoed here and take an even deeper dive, like what's under the covers of New Agent and get agent response, that's next week. But that's part of my premium content. Any questions? Nicholas, thank you. Thank you, Jason. Thanks, everybody, for taking the time and coming out. I appreciate the support. Hope to see you next week. Awesome. Go forth and enjoy the weekend. Later.